The Alpha and the Omega faces off against the most evil souls and their manifestations. The evil souls that we are talking about are the Hollows from Bleach and then Fullbringers, who in basic terms are humans with spiritual ability. These folks are going to face off against Vergil from the Devil May Cry series. This is going to include all of the Espada, past and present. We are also going to include Ikome Kidome from the Can't Fear Your Own World light novels. Then the Fullbringers, Alive and Dead, and the one from the light novels. So let's have a quick recap of the individual facing these folks. That being Vergil. This demon and loving father is equipped with the devil arm called the Yamato. This weapon is capable of slicing through reality or space-time itself. Along with this, Vergil is a demon-human hybrid that only gets stronger as time goes on. This is because of the demonic side consuming the biology of his human side, resulting in empowering Vergil even more. So let's compare the feats of these characters. Starting off with Vergil, he has speed feats that put him in the speed of immeasurable speed, as he is relative to Dante in literally every category. Feel free to check out my Vergil video for more details, but let's specifically talk about Vergil's durability and his most overpowered weapon, the Yamato. This weapon was passed down to Vergil from his father Sparta and is capable of slicing through space and time with the weapon itself. I will touch on why this is relevant in the matchup, but keep that in mind. Then we know that Vergil has insane durability and healing as a descendant of Sparta, along with the fact that he has the ability to go into Devil Trigger and Sin Devil Trigger mode, which both only amplify his power. Especially Sin Devil Trigger, which has Vergil's already ridiculous power combined with the Yamato itself. Then for the Hollows and Fullbringers, pretty much all of them have faster than light speed and upwards to massively faster than light speed, which is over 100 times faster than light. Some of the fastest characters here are going to be Ulquiorra, Stark, Haribel, Ginjo, Grimmjow, Nell, and Tsukishima. Then the rest are more likely a tier down in speed compared to these folks from Bleach, but regardless, a lot of them are pretty relative. Now let's get into the fun part, their abilities and hacks. So let's start off with the Bleach team. We have Baragon's ability to slow down folks around him, like we see when he fights with Soifon, who was one of the fastest beings we met in Bleach at that point in the series. Then when he releases his Resurrection, the aging process multiplies significantly. In fact, he ages things so quickly that buildings beneath him deteriorate as he floats past them. This is typically something that takes about 50 years for a building made of wood and another 50 for cement. We know that Soifon's attacks are going to be faster than 1 second, but let's use that as a base. With that assumption, that would mean that Baragon's aging ability multiplies 1.57 billion times at a low ball on the speed of Soifon's kick. And we know the environment around Baragon that was deteriorating wasn't only wood material. Then to add, Baragon is the second ranked Espada, and he would already be able to react to very fast characters without his passive ability or his Resurrection. For more hacks, we have Zamari, who is able to take over anything that his eye lands on. We see this when Zamari lands an attack on Byakuya and the captain is forced to disable his own arm and his own leg. The number 8 Espada, Granz, with his intelligence and Resurrection ability, is also very powerful. Especially if Granz is able to grab his opponent with his wings, he can mess with them like a voodoo doll and can ruin their insides. Then we have Ulquiorra, Grimmjow, Neutra, Yami, Haribel, and Nell that are absolute powerhouses. Each of these characters have crazy speed, strength, and durability. I am of the belief that their abilities themselves don't really stand anywhere near Baragon's ability that we just went over, but each of these characters are massively faster than light and are capable of ripping through pocket dimensions. This was shown when Grimmjow caught Ulquiorra off guard and used the Kaha Negation to trap him. Then it's noted that a typical Arrancar is unable to break out of this, but Espada are able to do this. And Ulquiorra does this in his base form without ever pulling out his sword. The last two hollow powerhouses I wanted to go over are Coyote Stark and Ikome Kidome. As we all know, Stark is the number 1 ranked Espada who has 2 different transformations that he can swap between. With his Los Lobos Resurrection, he combines with Lilionette, who was originally split from Stark. This originally happened because Stark was afraid of being lonely right before Aizen found them and had them join his Arrancar army. When Stark releases his Resurrection, he is able to blast 1,000 Ceros at once. Each of these Ceros are able to slice through buildings. Then to add, Stark and the next 3 ranking Espada are not allowed to release the Resurrection forms within Las Noches, because Aizen knew that just their sheer power would destroy the fortress they lived in. Now, if you're not sure how large Las Noches is, let's try to break it down. When Ichigo first meets Nell, when she is still in her child form, she tells Ichigo that it takes 3 full days at walking pace to get to the gate. If we are to assume that the average walking speed of a normal person is 5 miles per hour, which might be a little high, but let's just continue. That would mean that traveling for 72 hours straight on the perimeter of the fortress, that the gate is 12,960 miles away, meaning that the circumference would be 51,840 miles. Now, to lowball the size of the fortress, let's assume that Ichigo is exactly between 2 gates and there's only 2 gates, and the distance from Ichigo to the nearest gate would be the same. We can calculate the area of Las Noches from this information, which gets the size of this massive fortress to 213,855,351 miles. To put this into perspective, if the largest country of Russia were to take its same area of 6 million miles and to be shaped into a perfect circle, Las Noches is 32 times larger than the largest country in the world. Obviously, this assumes that you never sleep, keep the same average speed the whole time, the terrain doesn't impact your consistency, and they don't find any resistance that causes them to get into fights. Then keep in mind that a Espada like Grimmjow or Neutra are allowed to use their full power within the fortress, meaning that the top 4 Espada are quite literally on another level of power from the rest, where their power will not only reach the ends of Las Noches, but destroy it by simply transforming. Back on track with Stark, he is able to trade his pistols for his wolves. Now these wolves aren't Ceros, they are fragments of his soul. Just like how he splits from one being into Stark and Lilynet, these wolves are able to recover from physical attack, like shown when fighting against the Vizards, and with absolutely no effort, he sends the Vizards packing. Then we have Ikame Kidome that we learned from the Bleach novels Can't Fear Your Own World. This being comes from the time that Baragon was the one in charge of Hueco. He is an Adhuchas. Feel free to make fun of me on that. I'm sorry. Meaning that they never transformed into a Vastalorde. Typically, this would mean that he is weaker than a Vastalorde, since these types of hollows are a lower level hollow when comparing. But this hollow specifically was able to rival Baragon and respected his power. He was so powerful that back in the day, before Zanpakuto were part of every Soul Reaper's kit, Yamamoto was unable to defeat him, and it required Oetsu and Ichibei from the Royal Guard to take him down and seal him away. This same hollow would take on Haribel, Grimmjow, Nell, Jinjo, several of the Quincy's, and more in the fight that we can see. This hollow is also capable of releasing thousands of other little hollows that are under its control. The sheer amount of beings that he can summon is so unbelievable that it took Shinji's Bankai to actually defeat these hollows, where Shinji's Bankai is the perfect counter, and that it can make allies into enemies and they defeat themselves for him. Now that we've touched on the hollows, let's go over some of the Fullbringers. Ginjo is powerful enough and has a biology to make him a Soul King replacement like Ichigo if it ever came to it. He rivals Ichigo in the Fullbringer arc until Ichigo receives his full power back. Tsukishima is no slouch when it comes to skill, speed, or attack potency. He was able to catch Ishida completely off guard when being trailed by the Quincy. Along with Tsukishima's most dangerous ability in his kit is the Book of End. When stabbed by his sword, he is able to implant himself into your memories and make you believe whatever he wants. Along with this, he is able to learn anything about the ones impacted by this, and we see this when he fights Byakuya Kuchiki and is able to counter everything Byakuya does during their fight. Aura, this is a Fullbringer that we learn about within the Can't Fear Your Own World novels. She is able to materialize herself to the point that Kido and physical attacks do not harm her. Ruruka has the ability of Dollhouse. This allows her to move people or objects into anything she adores. This only happens when she marks her target and then she permits them. We see this during Ichigo's training to unlock his Fullbringer, and Ichigo is sent into a literal dollhouse. Yukio. Yukio has some of the best abilities as a Fullbringer with his Invaders Must Die abilities. He can create his own separate dimension from within his handheld video game console. As long as it has a battery, he can control the game or dimension that he has someone in. This allows him to control things like removing the risk of death, changing the environment to anything that he desires, and he's also able to change the flow of time where he showed that he can fast forward Ginjo and Ichigo when they are training. Giriko, this Fullbringer ability sounds like it has some of the most potential, but it's hard to say because we didn't really see him use it that much in the series. The most that we get to see is when they are fighting Kenpachi and share that the more simple the contract, the more power that he is able to get out of its ability. When at this time, Kenpachi one-shots him, and this is before Kenpachi even knows the name of his Zanpakuto. Then, I'm not going to go too much more into Vergil, as I do have a video dedicated to him already, but yes, he is insanely powerful, which is why we have this many folks from Bleach going against him. So what are some things that each side has over their opponent? Well, as far as speed and attack potency, Vergil has that in spades. Let's keep in mind that Nightmare from the first Devil May Cry game was capable of destroying the infinite underworld, and Dante was able to defeat this demon 3 different times. Then in the DMC2 novel, Dante would face off against Void Mundus, who was the actual embodiment of the underworld, and was noted to be stronger than the original one that he barely defeated at the end of Devil May Cry 1. To add, the original Mundus was the one that was responsible for Nightmare existing in the first place. But at this point, Dante would casually defeat Void Mundus. All of this is to say that at the end of Devil May Cry 5, we see that Dante has only gotten stronger as he has his Devil Sword Dante, and he has Sin Devil Trigger form. And Vergil isn't equal to him in literally every category. Overall, the things that the Hollow and Fullbringer teams need is their crazy hacks. And if they decide to work together, how good can that be for them? So how can the Bleach team defeat Vergil? First off, they naturally are not going to work together. We saw it with the Espada, and the Fullbringers are more likely to work together in that sense. It's just that the only Espada that have actually worked together in a fight was in the Can't Fear Your Own World novels, where we had Nell, Harabel, and Grimmjow fight together. For the sake of argument, let's assume that everyone works together on the Alpha and Omega. The best strategy that I can think of is you throw your best combatants at Vergil. This would include Noitra, Grimmjow, Harabel, Nell, Tsukishima, Ikame Kidome, and Okiura. Then folks like Baragon, Raruka, Yukio, Aura, Zamari, and Stark have the most difficult job of protecting each other with one single goal: trap Vergil. Somewhere between Zamari constantly trying to land an attack on Vergil to control anything he can get into contact with, Baragon trying to stay on top of Vergil to age him or slow him in general, Aura to distract him, and then Raruka and Yukio trying to trap him in Dollhouse and Invaders Must Die. They have a tall order here. During all of this, Grons will be scheming to support in this way as well. But here's the thing. Even if Grons with Zamari was able to absorb Vergil, whatever damage Grons is going to do to Vergil, the Sparta Descendant is going to heal back his missing organs immediately. Then let's say that their win condition works and they trap Vergil to have him face off against Baragon in a tight corridor. Vergil is equipped with the Yamato, meaning that he has 2 counters to this strategy. One being that the blade is noted several times to be able to cut through space and time. Baragon's ability is literally aging time at a ridiculous rate, essentially meaning that Vergil is going to be able to cut through Baragon's Respera and even the Hollow himself in the same judgment cut. Wonderful. If Vergil wanted to be more humane, then he has the option to actually cut through Yukio's pocket dimension that he trapped him in. Then at this point, Vergil is back on even ground with his opponent and just wins the fight. Let me know what you thought of this video, and please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Thank you, and I will see you in the next one.